So yeah, no, we're rolling, man.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah. Where do you want me to start with the little guy, Onyx?
Just start wherever you want, man. Start where you want to start. I've actually got that many different people and dogs and questions floating around in my head at the moment. I can't remember exactly where we're
Cool.
at with this. So this is you're going to be straight off the cuff.
Easy. So we rescued this little dingo cross breed, and he's 95% dingo. They're saying they got a DNA test done at the rescue centre, and we picked him up at 10 weeks. We met him at 8 weeks, and then we're like, yep, he's good. Checked out the litter, and then picked him up at 10 weeks, and we didn't know much about. We only knew about training dogs through people that have had dogs and stuff. But so we didn't take a proper crate. We took a mesh sort of travel crate for a dog, and he was freaking out as soon as we put him in it and went nuts for a bit. And then through the trip, he just fell asleep in it after a while because it was Newcastle, so it was like a 3-hour trip back to Sydney. And he was good, yeah, he was good in the crate. And then sort of kept crating him in that, and then he managed to tear through with his claws and got out. And then so we had him in our room for a bit. He was crating in there, and he was happy to just sleep in there with the door open. And then we moved it to the lounge room, and he was fine just sleeping with the door open. He was toilet trained straight away because of their wild dogs, and they just go right up the back as far away from the house as possible. So that was cool. And then got him out on the. I made the mistake of getting him out on the lead, not the rope line. And then I think I was messaging you about it. So we've had him for 3 weeks at home, and I found your training through Instagram. Oh no, there was some little ad thing that popped up.
Yep.
Are you still there?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, cool. And then I just did a quick little blitz through up to the end of the recall command, and I was like, this sounds like the thing to get onto pretty quick. So so far I've just so since watching your videos, I went out and I got him a long line that attaches to his collar, so one of those like retractable. You got a button and you press it and it stops, so you can let it go for up to 5 meters.
Yeah, I know the one. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, and that's been working pretty well. He's been coming at times, but not every time.
Yeah.
That I've wanted him to, and then we went and got a proper crate, and same deal. Like when we're here in the day, he'll sleep in it with the door shut. He's good, and then at night we've just left it open. Which I'm not sure if we should be doing that, but mainly for now it was do I go now from the retractable lead back to the long line?
Yep.
And that was the main question I had at the moment, just to get that command real strong, because we want to get him off the lead eventually as soon as we can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I definitely would, and I'd get him on a proper long line like what I use, and that long line that I use, it comes from like sheepdog training, bird dog training, and applications where sort of people that have been training dogs in disciplines that are hundreds, some of them probably arguably thousands of years old. Where they needed really good control over their dogs, and the average person doesn't need that type of control, but I sort of use those really solid principles and then just use them in really simple and easy ways, and it gets really fast, easy, and really good results, just for the everyday person. And that long line, how we use it, that's in the Paumiko Dog guide. It's about 7 meters long. It's really light, and we just tie that little loop in it and loop it around the dog's neck. There's two major differences between what you are using with the retractable one in the collar and the long line. the first and maybe most important part is and for me, for a lot of really important techniques and sort of dog psychology and different things, those retractable ones have one really big problem with them, where that because they're retractable, they're holding a constant, very light pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And what actually happens is we kind of talk about it in the Paumiko Dog Guide in the remedial training section in that video, Leash Fundamentals with Big Odin.
Yep.
And in there we talk about opposing force, and where it's basically any force that a dog it's a thing in not just dogs, animal psychology. If you push against a cow, it just leans back, you know.
Gotcha.
If you just sort of gradually pull on a dog when it's in a harness or a nice comfy collar, it'll just sort of lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have the long line and it's completely slack, and you go from a slack long line to a light check, you'll really get their attention and they'll look around. And it's important that any communication on the long line, because that's all we're really doing with the long line, is we're communicating. We're not, yanking on it and trying to hurt the dog or anything. So when I'm using the long line to train the recall right from the start, it's really important that the long line's slack and I go, Miko, come, and then I pull the long line, and so the long line's slack, there's no pressure on Miko's neck, she hears the command, there's that slight, communication on the long line, the light pull towards me, and as soon as she starts coming my way, all that pressure drops off again too. And so she hears the command, there's pressure pulling in my way. As soon as she starts moving my way, all the pressure comes off and she's coming in. And those retractable leads, you can't do it the same way because they're holding constant pressure. So you can't go from slack to a little bit of pressure to completely slack again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So now that he's got his... Yeah, ideally I would have done it when he was a bit more timid outside. But now that he's got his confidence up outside and he wants to go explore, if I chuck him on that line, because I've noticed it occasionally, like especially with the lead, like you said, he just get into the habit of pulling, and I was like, this isn't gonna work out very well. So when I put him on the retractable thing, often he'll run to the end and get a big jerk on the thing on his neck. So I'm just wondering, would there be any problems with that, or he'll just get one and he'll figure it out straight away?
Sorry, have you had him on a long line at all?
No.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah, I really think when you get him on a long line, all of this stuff will iron itself out real quick, and that's why we use them. And basically exactly what you said, and the very first time they run to the end, hit the end, and when you see them do it, like Miko did it, I almost like lean out to try and lessen that first couple of checks.
Yeah.
And she actually did it, and it's in the Paumiko Dog Guide when she goes to run off to some kids.
I saw that one.
Yeah, and she gets that check, and she's like, and the thing is, it does give them a check, and the way the long line's set up, it does tighten around their neck a little bit, but, and we even talk about it in the Paumiko Dog Guide, where the idea of the long line and using that is very light checks get the dog's attention, and we can communicate with the dog properly, and we can give them a light pull, they take notice of it, then we can release all the pressure, and it's all about that principle of pressure and praise. A little bit of pressure on what we don't want, all the pressure comes off as soon as the dog's doing what we do want, and we can do that with a long line. And like again, that's why I use them, because using like a thick collar or one of those retractable things or a harness and all of those things, it's so difficult to communicate with the dog properly through those tools, and it often we're using them and some people hesitate to use a long line because it might be too hard on the pup's neck, when it's actually the complete opposite. And I've worked with a lot of people that their dogs are pulling on the lead and with the big collar on, and they're puffing and wheezing and choking themselves, and it's all just a big sort of drama. And we put them on a long line and do a bit of long line work with them, and all of a sudden there's no pressure on the long line and everything's relaxing and calming down,
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll definitely give it a crack. Get into it. Wicked. And then the other question I was having, so we read some books and whatever, and they said to do the treat reward training, but I noticed you don't do that. You don't do that in yours. So he's been doing that since we got him in. He's following commands, but he's cluing up to when we have food and when we don't have food.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, you can see it's getting old pretty quick for him when we don't have food. But the other thing is he doesn't love affection like, other little dogs. So it's kind of seems a bit tricky. What would you recommend?
Yeah, I see what you mean. Look, first thing I definitely have to say is I've never worked with a dingo before. I've never worked with a wolf. I've never worked with a dingo, So, cool. So definitely full disclosure there, and I'm not sure if there is, really large differences there. Surely you can. Yeah.
Would you move away from the treat training?
I definitely would. Definitely, and you brought up the very first reason straight away why I don't use it, and that is it only work. Look, it's a huge topic, and we could talk about it for hours. But that's one thing that can happen is you can train a dog to sit with the treat. And then you can get it happening and get it started, and it can work very quickly and work very well. But then the dog's doing it for the treat, and it's also taking the dog's focus off you and onto the treat. And it can actually, depending on how you do it, it can be detrimental. You're trying to use the treat as an aid, but it's actually detracting away from the whole thing. It's detracting away from you getting that real attentiveness and getting that real bond, and the dog starting to look to you, and it's starting to look to you for praise. Whereas, our principle of pressure and praise, pressure on what we don't want, praise on what we do want, keeping praise separate from the release, which we go over in part 2 of training Miko, which is really, really important. We're about to release part 3 of training Miko and the stop drill, and we go over a lot more sort of information on the way we use our stop drill and the way we actually use the way we train the stop without treats as a tool to create the attentiveness and the bond and the way the pup looks to us and eye contact and everything. And it's actually a deliberate thing. I can teach a pup the act of sitting down quicker with a treat than I can without it, but I'm actually using that process of the longer process of doing it without treats to create an actual bond and attentiveness and a whole raft of other things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I can see when I'm doing drills with him with the treats, he gets the treat, but then he doesn't want any sort of praise. He's like, yeah, sweet, I got what I wanted, I'm done.
Yeah, and it's such a huge subject that, and some people that, arguably know a lot more about dog psychology than I do will tell you that the act of you trying to bribe a dog and hand over you as this fully grown adult human communicating to the dog that you think you need to give it something to get it to do something basic rather than just telling it to do it and then praising it for doing it. Does that make sense? How that can actually change the way a dog looks at you?
Yeah, no, for sure. I sort of get that feeling because he's quite smart. He's kind of like, oh, this old game again.
Very, very smart. You know, and dogs are I think it's either 99.98% wolf or 98.98% wolf or something like that. All dogs' DNA is basically exactly the same, whether it's a Labrador or a Dingo or a wolf. They're the same thing.
Yeah.
And they're still all operating on the same systems and instincts. And they're really careful about who they listen to, and they're not rationalizing it and reasoning and thinking, I shouldn't listen to this guy because he's giving me treats for doing next to nothing, but they just automatically do it, you know. And it's actually something that I've experienced myself, experimenting with treat training back in the day. I've done a lot of it. I've done a lot of all different forms of training, and I didn't like it, and that's why I don't use it. And I've actually done quite a bit of work with people that are having a lot of problems with dogs that they're treat training, and going away from treats and back to long line basic fundamentals has actually been a really good way of overcoming some of the problems that they've run into through treat training.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, sweet. I'm thinking we're going to try and move away from it. With the, that's the other thing. Whatever I read at the time was said to use these Kong feeding treats around meal times to give them a bit more to do. And I noticed in your videos you got a strict Paumiko 4 meals in the crate, quite measured approach. Is that what do you think of the Kongs? Should we be doing that or go to the bowl?
Miko does get chew toys.
Yeah. You
know, and that's separate to her food. I have a thing with dogs and food where, you know, all my dogs have got like a really good off-leash sit on I can get my dog to sit, you know, print and fly almost anywhere, anytime, with a hand signal most of the time, you know. And I just don't mess with my dog's food. I don't make them sit before they eat it. I don't want to stuff it in a Kong and make them wriggle it out. If I want to feed my dog, I put it in a bowl and I let them eat it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I train them when I train them, and when I feed them, I just feed them. And I've experimented with all that stuff. I've experimented with getting my dogs to wait before they eat and all that sort of thing. And sometimes it can work really well, but I can train a dog to sit without it, and I've actually had it create more problems than the benefits that I'm getting out of it, where I've had dogs get more angst around food because I'm putting it in front of them and making them wait, and they're getting tense, and then when I say okay, they're pouncing on the bowl and trying to scoff it down. Like Print is very relaxed with his food. He never scoffs it. Because I've always just put it in front of him and let him eat, you know.
And he's just like, knows what to expect every time.
Knows what to expect every time, and again, it just comes back to that training's training, food's food, and just respecting that, you know, and just that whole thing of do this and I'll give you a little bit of food, or I'm going to make you dig your food out of a rubber toy, or you have to wait before you're allowed to eat. The whole thing can affects the way your dogs look at you, and it can do that in a negative way, you know.
Totally.
But definitely, chew toys, you know, are quite good though. You can get those pig's ears. You can get fake pig's ears if you're not into pig's ears, and you can even get. I can't remember if we put it in the Paumiko Dog guide, but I can do a post on them. They're actually a biodegradable. They look like a rubber bone. They're a rubber dog chew, but they're biodegradable, and the dog can actually break them down and rip bits off and start getting bits and pieces off them.
Cool.
Does that make sense? So the pup's not chewing up and swallowing plastic. It's actually something that's isn't going to harm them. But and because it's that same thing. It's they're just getting that out of their system, that whole chewing, and it's giving them something to do in the crate.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
What? Awesome! Thank you so much. What about this? Leaving the crate open overnight, would you go away from that?
So
he seems to be all right. He sleeps through. He's got a bed in there. He happily goes to it.
Does he go out to go to the bathroom or something?
Yeah. He just goes out and relieves himself.
How does he? And so, how does he get out? Is the crate inside or outside?
The crate's in the lounge room.
Yeah.
He goes through out of the lounge room, out the kitchen, out the back door. I just leave the back door open.
Yep. And then he just comes back in and jumps back in his crate.
Yeah.
That's quite a hard case. It's quite typical too, though, when you do crating and kenneling and everything properly, that it becomes like their little safe spot, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, look, in all honesty, I don't see a problem in that.
He's not like chewing all the furniture and stuff.
That's the one thing, and sometimes some things like that work fine for a little while, and you think, oh sweet, we're good as gold, and then as he gets a bit of age, how long have you had him, and how old is he?
Just 3 weeks. Just 13 weeks.
Yeah, okay, so he's really young. Personally, I would be very, very surprised if it didn't if that thing didn't turn around and bite you in the bum somewhere along the way, and
he goes nuts one night and just shreds.
As he gets older, because they do, when a pup's really young, they're still a baby. You know, they're actually quite chill, and as you reach 6, 8, 9 months old, they start getting a lot more intensity. They're starting to reach adolescence. They're getting experimental. They're like, man, I wonder what that thing tastes like, or what's that thing over there, you know? And all of a sudden, he might shred something, and might not be a big deal, but as long as it doesn't end up being like an electric cable, or you know what I mean?
True.
It could go in so many different directions. So I'm not telling you to lock him in the crate every night, but that's just my take on it. Maybe you could maybe try and just see what happens. See if he starts have a whine in the middle of the night to be let out to go to the bathroom, or how it's going to pan out. I would at least experiment with it. Just to make sure he's comfortable and settling down. That's the main thing too, and it's sometimes like with restriction and crating, it's really cool if we can do things like that. And he can just cruise outside and go to the bathroom whenever he wants to. That's really good. It comes back to that idea of doing the worst first, and putting a dog in the crate on the way home first time, and crating a dog overnight. Of course the dog would rather be on my bed at night, or of course the dog would rather just get up and walk around when it wants, but the only thing you've got to be aware of is if you don't do it and you don't get it out of the way, somewhere along the line, when you do run into a night where, oh no, we're going to have to stay at a friend's house tonight and we can't leave the door open, and so he's not going to be able to go outside, so we're probably going to have to lock him in the crate. And then he wakes up at 2 o'clock in the morning and starts going ballistic, making heaps of noise.
Yeah, true.
Because
exactly.
you haven't addressed it yet. And that's why I just like confront all the things that I know I'm probably going to have to do right from the start. You know what I mean? And just get him done, get him out of the way, and then it's done. And the thing is once it's done and you know you can do it, then if you want to, you can leave the crate door open and he can cruise in and out. But if you have to go stay at your friend's, you know you can shut the door and it's going to be alright, you know?
Yeah, totally. Totally. get onto it. But awesome. That's some good stuff. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you very much. I'll keep you posted on how things go with you.
Yeah, sweet as. This is really interesting. The dingo thing. I'll be following this with interest. Like I said, we obviously don't have them in New Zealand. I've never had a someone overseas following any of my videos that's rung up and said, hey, or even messaged me saying, hey, I'm training a dingo.
Yeah, some friends had one, and he had the best temperament when he was older. But yeah, he said that he was just like onto him full blown till he was, like a year. He was just on his back, making sure he didn't step out of line. Yeah. So yeah, the only other thing he does that we're trying to correct is he mows pretty badly, and his front incisors are a little bit bigger than the average, they're saying. So if he gets you, he breaks the skin. Yeah,
okay. Command of disapproval, man. Pressure on what you don't want.
Yeah.
Reading and timing. As soon as he does it, just no, pull away. Even give him a little push away. No, and the big key. So pressure on what you don't want. But the big key with that mouthing thing, especially on hand contact, is as soon as they do it, just no, and then as soon as they're not trying to do it, pat them then. Praise on what you do want. So just trying to catch him out when he's not mouthing you, give him a bit of praise. That's good. That's what we want. And then as soon as he opens his mouth,
Yeah. Just ongoing.
Ongoing, man.
Ongoing.
Yeah, keep on top of it.
Oh yeah, I tried that. No, because he was whining in the crate the other day, and You there?
Yep, I'm there. Yep, sorry, another call tried to... Yep, you there?
No, good. Yeah, I put him in the crate the other day, and he didn't want to be in there for some reason. So I tried that. Come by the room and just do the no and walk out that you did when you were training Miko from the first couple of times.
Yep.
And he kept whining, and I did it a couple of times, and then I came in when he wasn't whining and released him.
Yep.
And he bolted out the back, and I was just sitting on the couch, and I wasn't watching it, and he came in and he jumped up and went for my face, like to say, fuck you, man.
Yeah. So he's doing like a real testing thing, like it's kind of playful, but it sounds like the kind of thing that a young pup would sort of do with this with a litter mate, like testing you, playing. Hey, what are we? I'm going to try to jump up at your face, and are we going to play, or are you going to tell me that that's not all right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's sort of, you got to think about like what would an older dog do if a pup tried to do that to it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't attack it or really seriously try to hurt it, but it would definitely go, get out, you know what I mean? Have a bit of a snap and a growl and get out of it. That's not all right,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I was like, oh, that was interesting. You really didn't like that. You told me about it.
Yeah, you've got to read that and let them know, He sounds like a bit of a dag, like he's got a bit of an attitude.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of attitude. I'll have to get him sorted. Keep watching the guide.
Yeah. No, this is interesting, man. It's really cool to hear from you from Aussie and that all that's going on.
Yeah, sweet. Well, there's plenty of dogs in Bronte. Jeez, it's the epicenter of dog owning and dog training. So I'll spread the word over here. Yeah,
awesome, man. It's really early days on the dog guide.
Yep.
And it's only been up and running for a couple of weeks, and we're obviously still flat out making videos for it and that, and adding to it, and we want the sort of the Q&As to be a part of it too, because it, this Q&A, people training their dogs will listen to it and take a lot of value away from stuff like this, eh?
Yeah, cool. Good on you. It's great. I want that. That's the goal. What you've got with the two older dogs. That's the dream.
Yeah. It's not.
Everyone's dream, eh?
What's that?
That's every dog owner's dream, huh?
Yeah, well, it's I mean, to me, what I've got with them isn't even that amazing, you know. Like, I get that quite a lot, walking along the beach, and a dog comes up, and I tell my two to sit off, you know, they're off leash, and I just say sit, and they sit down, and and I say, oh, is it alright if my dogs play with your dogs? And they say, yeah, that's fine. And I say, give them the release command, and they hop up and run around, and people are just blown away. But you know, like growing up around farms and different uses of dogs, you know, using them for actual work and jobs, like a dog that can just sit, that's like that's very easy, you know. That's like the very first basic simple thing you should have, you know. So, but what I'm trying to say is it's not even that hard. If you just do the basics right, anyone can have it, you know. And that's sort of what the whole Paumiko thing's all about.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Well, I better get to work.
Yeah, man.
To chat
Sweet. Oh, thanks a lot for you doing the QnA. It's bloody good.
No worries. Yeah, I'll keep you posted how it goes.
Yep, sweet as, man. Okay, talk soon.
Cheers.
See ya.
Bye.